Thank you very much for coming. I will do now what I always do with students. I actually open the door to see if there are any last-minute entries. Please. And you will see that it's always the professors who are late. So, would it not be nice? No, let me pose another question. You have all gotten a yellow page from a student. Please pick a pen and riddle me this. I would like you to state on this piece of paper whether you would like to be rather a lamppost or a dung beetle. Dung beetle, lamppost. Put it on your piece of paper. What would you rather be? A dung beetle or a street light? And why? In 20 seconds. Mestgever. Dung beetle. For the rest of your life. Dung beetle or city light, street light? What would you rather be? And why? 3 words. All these students could do it in 20 seconds. What would you rather be? Okay. I'm hearing the silence. That means that everybody is busy. Still hearing silence. But now the silence should end. Otherwise, I don't have time to talk about biodiversity. So thank you very much. Something will happen with it. So keep it with you until someone asks for it. I have been asked to talk about effects of light pollution on biodiversity. And one of these things, light pollution and biodiversity, one of the things which I thought about is for 5 years ago, this was not an item on my agenda. Why not? That is why I started thinking about how can you get a picture in your head of how can we frame this? How can it be so logical? So of course we are on this earth, we have a lot of light, we have cosmic cycles, and we have night and dark. And for that, life is seen or not seen, and that being seen or not seen has advantages and disadvantages. Also, we have seasonal variations, day length, we have summer-winter differences, has also something to do with light. And of course, that's very much related to all kinds of consequences for life. What kind of resources are available depending on the amount of light? And actually, if you think about it, again, everything is related to light. And we have energy source for life. Plants produce food from light. We have temperature. Light has a relation with temperature and climate. Not question marks, by the way. That is something which Apple does to you. Water cycle and evaporation is driven by light. Primary production is driven by light. Secondary, by definition also. Everything is driven by light. Light, and then, of course, in combination with water and nutrients. That is the basis for how life on Earth is actually distributed in tropical, in polar, in all kinds of different climate zones. So, of course, there's all kinds of adaptations which life took. With much light, eyes should be able to cope with that. So the retina should be coping with that, and the rods and cones. So the sensors basically in your eye should be able to cope with that. And also you're very visible, which means that you should have anti-predator behaviors or camouflage, or try something out in terms of how to use shading or color patterns in order not to be eaten all the time. It can only be done once, and then you're dead. So also the sun, the source of light, can be used for direction. So that's life will listen to that kind of things, but also the night active part. There's also adaptation to very little light. Also in the vision part, animals with large eyes, large pupils, also with the sensors, rods and cones. Also other sensors can help besides vision. So we tend to hear, smell and feel, use air movement, vibration and heat. All these animals can use that kind of sensors when vision is not really a good option. The non-visibility is quite okay because you have predation risk, which can be quite low. There's also camouflage which you can use, but it's a different type of camouflage. Stealth mode, all kinds of things that animals developed under night active conditions in the dark. So orientation, and moon, stars, Milky Way has already passed us in a previous talk. And there is also these dung beetles, which I asked you about. Why the dung beetles? There's this wonderful story that shows that dung beetles roll dung. And it's obvious they're dung beetles. Lay eggs in that and they need it. And they want to have it somewhere. And to somewhere you have to go by orientation. So there can be your path can be straight or fuzzy, and that depends on how good you can orient. And you can orient fast when you have a starry sky, if you are a dung beetle. With dim stars and the Milky Way present, then it works. So you have here, you have starry sky outside. If you have a starry sky in the planetarium, then you can manipulate the amount of stars that you have in the planetarium, and then you can see how fast or how slow these animals actually work in getting the dung from a plate. Can be in all directions, but this is fast with the starry sky, and this is all over the place. They don't know where they go when the starry sky is occluded. So kind of nice. This is my favorite subject. I worked on this guy, European ground squirrel, and it's living, males and females, in the middle of the day. So during nighttime, you don't see them, and they never see the change from night to dark. So how do they know when it's light or dark? It's kind of creepy that they know underground when it's light outside. They come outside for 4 hours after sunrise. How do they know that if there's no signaling? So they have an internal clock system for that. That has developed, of course. Also, they're absent most of the time. So they're not there during winter, January, February, and they're not there at the end of the season. But how do they know that they have to come out there? Because they're underground and they don't have any clues. So they have a timing system for that. And that has been developed in the relation to day length. But their eyes, they're very day active. They have 98% cones, 98% color vision, which gives them really good vision for flying predators, for instance. But also they have an inbuilt sunglasses. They have a yellow lens. Of course, during the night, they don't see anything because they have this yellow lens. But very, very, very adapted to these things. So circadian patterns, very explicit. Seasonal adaptations, of course, they are very necessary to look at the differences between summer and winter. You can do this in different ways. You can avoid by hibernation, so keep away, also by migration, or you can cope with it with more insulation, more fur color, or less exposure. And that is what these Hungarian hamsters actually do. These are Siberian hamsters, you can buy them. This is the winter form, this is the summer form. This is when they usually have snow outside, this is when not. So that kind of stuff listens to daylight. If you give them short days, they will change to this, whenever. It will take a while. Okay, bats, brown rats, eyes, 98% rods. So they don't have color vision. They see black and white, but they have a very, very clear, they can see very well in the dark. Also, they use smell and hearing and whiskers for touch. Bats, we know about all kinds of adaptations to the night, high blue, UV sensitive in the eyes, echolocation. Owls are very, very nice in that they can do stealth flight. So their wings, their feathers have beards, which means that you do not hear them flapping. All kinds of extreme adaptations. So biodiversity is adapted to light. Cosmic cycling, they rule the light, they rule day and night. There's all kinds of adaptations. They rule summer and winter, all kinds of adaptations. So life on Earth is completely shaped by and adapted to light. So why do we think that if we add light, that nothing happens to them? It's a little bit of framing of how I now look at the additional light effects. So how bad is that? If you look at what sky glow can do, wonderful picture of the International Dark Sky Association, where natural light patterns and sky glow really show very well how artificial situations can influence these natural light patterns very, very intensely. There's a very nice publication of Jägerbrand and Spoelstra, 2023, who shows a lot about pre-industrial landscapes and light and industrial and now, and where we would like to go in terms of artificial lighting. Should we go here or should we keep it here? That kind of questions. And they very nicely made a schedule of what the longer days actually can do with all kinds of animals. A lot of groups of species have been recorded to be affected by light. So to pick some, specifically like this one, and because of this name, it's called the willy wagtail. Kind of fun. So they like pair bonding, as we all do, but they like to do it at moonlight, very romantic. But if you have artificial light, their moonlight singing is halved. So it's not that romantic, this artificial light, apparently, for animals in nature. So if you have artificial light for different species, chaffinch, blue-tip, grey-tip, blackbird and robin, you see that they start their songs earlier, the grey-tips, blackbirds and robins. And of course that adds to your day, which means that you need to take up more resources. It also not only screws a bit with the timing of your activity, daily timing, but also with the breeding timing, because under artificial light conditions, the blue tits actually start breeding earlier. That's not so good, because then the timing of the breeding might be mistimed with all the other things that you need. Maybe the caterpillars are not in line with the time that you actually need them for your young. So that's for species, but also for systems. Also on a landscape scale, you have all kinds of different effects on different species which interact with each other in these systems. So if you have a light there, then fish will me doing different stuff. They like to be in the dark, so they're not over there. And all kinds of insects will be drawn to the light. Some bats will be not attracted, some bats will be attracted. Most of them will not be attracted, but it changes. And that, of course, changes the system and changes the food web. Migration patterns. It's a very nice publication on the Leeuwarden, who specifically actually point out the effects of artificial light at the seaside and how that affects the Wadden Sea system. Birds are basically attracted to artificial light, even if it's somewhere where they don't need to go. We were asked to do something about insects, also because insects seem to be a dying species group, not entirely, but it's quite heavy. So publication a couple of years ago that showed that 75% less biomass in insects was caught with these kind of catching tents. And that was a change of over the last 25 to 27 years. And if you think about biomass, that's kind of interesting. Biomass is actually what you can be as food for birds. Yeah, so insects are food for birds. 75% less biomass means 75% less birds. And that's kind of heavy. What do these animals do? They fly, flying insects, they fly. But if they meet a lamp, then they start doing something silly. They think that it has to do with with natural light, which means that they think it's the ceiling. And of course, you want to have your back to the ceiling if you want to fly somewhere horizontally, which means that if you get in the vicinity of a lamp, you start getting your back to the lamp and circling around it. Or if you come from below, then you start to stall and then you fall back and then you start circling. If you are too high, you turn over and you put your back to the light and you start circling. So basically, eventually they end up with circling by thinking that this light is the moon and the star. So if there is a light, then you have a catastrophe. In Dutch, that's quite nice. Als er een lamp is, dan is er een ramp. Ramp, that's the terrain. So that's cool. If that's the case, then if you look into landscapes, then landscapes with lights, of course, can mean barriers, because if there is a rich insect situation on the one side with a ditch and all that kind of very nice things, that will not go past this. It will stay on this side. So if you have a road with a lot of light, there is a problem with species distribution. So avoiding light will get barrier functions of these street lights, and also less spreading of functional insects, if you want to think about it in that way. Can light indeed influence populations? Because that is one of the things which is very important evidence. And there's a study on moths, micro moths, and they have been studied in different phases, 2012, 2013, 2014 to 2016. And the 0 is the control situation, which was there. And great, I'm really good at schedule. Under different light conditions, white, green, and red, you can see that there's no significant difference in the first between control and the situations where they later on had the white and green and red light, and after 2 or 3 years you see that populations are declining. So, and continuously, not a year effect, but continuously. So that's kind of despicable. populations are also affected. Very important study. So what do we have? And there was light at the wrong time, and then disturbance of light, dark, and night cycles, disturbance of seasonal cycles, physiology, activity patterns, survival, reproduction, in all kinds of ways and levels. Okay, so it's quite harsh, heavy for animals and ecosystems. Okay, then, of course, the question, what did we do? What do we do about it? And we've seen the picture of we've seen that we wanted to do something on different levels. Okay, let's see. We were into ecological monitoring and want to do that as a kind of support for co-creation. That's somewhat different than trying to study this academically, but we chose to get stuff done which can also be a little bit citizen science proof, because then you can use it in co-creation much more easily. And of course, all these groups which we chose, the birds and the bats and insects and benthic, they all have their difficulties. But I wanted to show a little bit about what we were doing with the insects and with some other stuff. So what we have is ecological monitoring, feasibility of the insects, and you've been all using these sticky traps. Does that make, yeah, you've seen them? Sticky traps? No one has seen sticky traps? Yeah, okay. What do we do with them? Because you send them here and then stuff happens and you don't know what stuff that is. So what we do is we scan them by photographs. Some of you have seen the machine, also the action sequential photographs, or we put them on a flatbed scanner, but we do a lot of photograph type of scanning, photograph quality. We did that before in all kinds of different projects, although I must say that we have to expand the map because we have Brest and we have Germany somewhat further up also. What happens then is with this imagery, you can start to ask artificial intelligence to find insects. If you have these insects found, you can ask them things on their shape, which are interesting for biomass purposes, and you can try to figure out what kind of species group this is. It's pretty good, the models that have been developed by Arjen and Rutger in really looking at insects and not pieces of grass or shit or dirt or the insect diversity, the size difference. That's a really difficult thing for AI to actually see pretty well. But this seemed to be going quite right. And after that, we have these pictures, and that's quite nice because you can look picture after picture after picture, and Rutger is very good at that. Certainly if it's about this species group, because that's his favorite, the gold wasps or houtwespen or something like that, and he can place a family code to that. Of course, you cannot get all these animals to species level. We even don't get further than 2 or 3% to species level. But it's something. Can AI do that also? Well, at the moment, Arjen has a model which is doing AI to the order level quite well, but order level is not really good enough for getting biodiversity. So we are lingering on to do this for the family level too, but we probably need some more work. So what we got from you, this is I think from Brest, we got all kinds of sticky traps, and we can count for how many insects are there, and with that you can make light versus dark or acute versus chronic differences. And it's a lot of data, and we have to still figure out how to make sense of this. but you see the numbers which we can get to order. So in total there was something like 27,000 insects, which in different groups, and we have to figure out how to make sense of that. This I will skip. In Holwert, we have been measuring stuff, but not only on insects. And you've seen the picture with these artificial light at the industrial area. There's a control site on the other side. It's the industrial area control site over there, much darker here. Also in the city, there are two places where there's one relatively dark and relatively light. We have been measuring bird song there. And this is from the analysis of Brest, where for 3 different species we see that their nightly activity in numbers. The problem that I have with that is that actually I would like to see the differences in when they start singing in the dark and in the light situation as a group. So what we did there is try to figure out how to measure this onset. So we made 10-minute averages of all the songs versus over an 8-hour average from 4 hours before sunrise to 4 hours after sunrise. So we have a relative level at which you can say, okay, now it crosses over to where they want to start their singing. You have a shitload of data, of course, but this is the patterns that you get. So for the chiff-chaff, we have 0, and then at minus 140, they start singing, and at some stage they start singing more than the average over the first, over minus 4 hours to plus 4 hours around sunrise. And industrial area south, they are darker, relatively dark. It's minus 33 minutes, that crossover point, and here it's minus 78 minutes, which means 45 minutes earlier under the light conditions. So that is kind of hopeful. Then we have the blackbirds, and they couldn't care less, certain time. It's exactly the same. Minus 100, that's exactly the same. Other situation, chiff-chaff again, minus 53 minutes, 60 minutes earlier than the dark onset. So there's something which can be measured there, and also there the common blackbirds, they couldn't care less. So that seems to be kind of repeatable. So if you keep your light off, then the birds, at least these chiff-chaffs, will wake you up later. And that's a good. Some developments in that. That's why we think that this bird stuff is really good. So we want to push that on a little bit. We already talked a little bit with people about the BirdNet Pi and the light sensor, which we have on that, which can give you very, very fast indications of what is happening. As you can read this date, this is actually today, this morning at my house. And this is at Eerstrum. That's in the Wadden area, and that's where Arjen lives. So that's at his house. So it is really very easy to follow what is happening there. With the combination with the light sensor, you can see that this is the light which is actually sensed, and that is the light that how the animal sees it. So this combination will give you very good information on when the animals are starting singing compared to where the light is going. Moths, my favorite subject. I catch them with these. This was this morning. It's freaking cold, but this was this morning. I caught 375 individuals of 13 species. It was a long morning to catch that. I didn't take it with me because there were too many. But these moths have that attraction towards this kind of light. So we wanted to see whether we could make a little bit of a system which could address that by sequentially photograph them in this lead bucket situation in order to figure out if you can get a very good sequential idea of when you can catch which moth. So here, that's the timing of the moths that were caught. Of course, the camera was ready in the worst possible time. So there were not many moths, but it was quite spread out over the whole night. And there were some complications, so we have to go on with that. The last bit is about some things which happened to us a couple of months ago. There are several students here. You have noticed that from NIL Standard, from different educational programs. And I asked them how to activate people to limit artificial light at night, specifically for biodiversity, not for some nice other things, but specifically for biodiversity. And they settled for short movies on ALAN and game design. That's not on the menu right now. How to trigger a relation of artificial light at night and biodiversity through empathy. And the first one, how to activate others and oneself by a kind of ask and confront idea. This is what they did. They asked people, what do you think? Is this light pollution? By giving them post-it notes. And then this kind of assessment comes out of at least a bunch of 20 students. And you see that this is quite good, where I think this is what a bird sees, and that's not good. Yeah. But these patterns you've probably seen before in the assessment of of how bad light pollution actually is. Then some other in-depth situations where they asked, if you have a house with certain lighting shit, yeah, with some lighting shit, what could you say that some people who live there should be doing about it? So what would you have these people do about their ALAN? And then there are a huge amount of reactions. And then, of course, you can turn it around by asking them, and okay, if it was your house, what would you then do? That is kind of interesting, but you have to ask them really about what happens in these processes. But I think it's kind of nice to have that as a new way of looking and confronting people into decisions or how to look at these problems. The other group was aimed for a dilemma, biodiversity and light, making a kind of confrontation between the two. That was the question I asked you. So these yellow thingies will be picked up and they will use it in their research. So if it was bullshit, you note it, please scratch it. Yeah? Because they will use it. Would you rather be and why? There's a lot of text you can get out of these words. And there's a lot of ways to look at these reactions, and they're still busy with that. But I thought it would be a really good idea to also in this audience try out this question. So this empathy bit between light and biodiversity can be triggered because there is a certain willingness to accept this combination. And I hope that empathetic connection will lead to thinking about co-creation solutions in a sense of light versus life. And that is my last word on this. Okay, thank you very much for filling out this form. I have question time. So should I throw this ball? Do we still have the ball? Yeah, throw it, yes. Great.
Well, thank you very much for your very good presentation. I'm triggered by what the students did. Is it possible to do with our entrepreneurs in the harbor and the fishermen too?
Yes.
Can we make an appointment?
Well, that has to be done with the students.
Okay.
But it can be mediated.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was curious about maybe a combination of the AR, VR application we've seen before in increasing empathy. So if you would look like if you would see the world as an insect, would it help to use these kinds of tools, or would it bring you further away from feeling like an insect? It's would that be an interesting combination?
Very interesting. Well, actually, I think we have some experience with that with bumblebee stuff. I mean, there's a very incriminating movie of me who is impersonating a bumblebee with the VR glasses, and I can say that does not look pretty. But indeed, you can do that kind of stuff, and it will help. I do also think that the use of VR should not be overrated, and it's not R, it's V. Yeah. So talking about that, you've seen now something on the screen which popped up in my head. Is also one of these game design things, and as you can see, my moths are actually attracted to the light, and if you make a game out of this, if you let them sit there, then they will go there and they will grow old. But if you make a game out of it, you can make it also somewhat more heavy, in the sense that it will be more difficult to keep them away from the light. And if they hit the light, then you will see the kill rate go up. So I already told that kill rates going up in this way might not be the right way to go. But you could do another type of story behind it. And I think that there's really some potential in this to figure out how to get people noticing that these guys are disappearing when they hit the light. But it can be much improved in that sense. Although I must say it's quite contagious. If you
Yeah, but it's not the empathy approach, I would say.
It's not empathy, but it is a confrontation with reality. Indeed, that they die because of light. So, okay.
Thanks for the demo, Arjen. But I was wondering about the perspective change. So this is still from a human perspective or an outsider perspective. And would it be interesting to have the perspective of the moth? So to really see with their eyes.
I agree.
And fly around in the harbor or Flauwzo or forward being a moth.
That could help. In empathy and impersonation is our ways to go.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. My comment question is, so we are talking here to reach people based on empathy. So from my experience, I mean, from the experience of our project, which is young, but still, we noticed that sometimes you have to deal with people that basically don't give any importance. Exactly, you said it. So what about instead of going with empathy, going with highlighting what they can benefit from, like moth not dying or biodiversity being preserved.
Okay, that last bit is getting more interesting for me, because the best motivation for doing something for biodiversity is it's coming from inside. So it should be something which you yourself feel that it's something which is necessary. It's called nature connectedness, isn't it? So that, and I think that anything which you want should actually aim for it in terms of doing something good for biodiversity, should go via that. So if you think in terms of what can it bring me, that is opposite of that. It should be not doing something or asking what the country can do for you, but what you can do for the country, basically a Kennedy type approach. So I think the things which enhance, which people can do, which enhance their own benefits, is not necessarily the way to go.
Is it feasible to really engage people on the empathy side, like at large scale?
Yes, it is. It is, and we should. It is, and we should. So nature connectedness is really something.
Thanks.
That's a short answer. I can elaborate, but that would take too long.
Any more questions?
Yeah, that was one in the front. And then I want to make a comment too.
A further question to this nature connectedness. There's probably two types of people. The one who, there are more, but the clear ones, the ones who are able to nature connectiveness, and the other ones who are more in the techno sphere somehow. They always look for technical solutions for everything and find that much more exciting. So how to get these people involved too?
So technical solutions will only help if they enhance nature connectedness. Can use it for that. But the technical solution, if it does not enhance biodiversity, is not a solution. But we should talk about that a little bit longer, because there's too much to be talked about in that arena. I would like to comment a little bit on the questions. So the questions were about humans again. So are we past all these things which were bad for nature? Do we not challenge that anymore? Or is the notion in your head now how you could explain it to others that artificial light at night is actually bad because it is the root of our origin, and if we change the root, then the rest changes? Could I have some raise of hands that it helped? Did it help? Did it help? Yeah, it helped. Thank you very much.